Okay, it is 6:30, and we're going to call the April meeting of the Kansas City School Board of Trustees to order. And I've asked Mrs. O'Rourke to lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is the approval of the consent agenda items, which will include I will also, we have a donation in the personnel report. I will read them after we approve the consent agenda items, but that would include the approval of tonight's agenda, approval of the minutes for the regular session on March the 9th, 2021, the special session on March the 23rd, 2021, payroll claims for March 12th, payroll claims for March 26th, and payroll claims for April the 9th, as well as the accounts payable claims. And like I said, we have a personnel report I'll read after we're done, and that is included in tonight's agenda. And we have no overnight field trips, and we have one donation. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
I would like to pull out from the consent agenda, the agenda approval of tonight's agenda to remove item 6.1 for further study.
I'm looking to pull 6.1. Got a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, we're going to need a motion to remove that. All in favor of removing 6.1 from tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And next, we will need a motion to approve the consent agenda items, less that one item, and a second as well.
I move to approve the consent agenda items with the removal of the items.
A second?
I second.
A motion and a second. All in favor of consent agenda items, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. The personnel report is a medical leave request from Brianna McDonough, as requesting to extend her leave of absence to the end of the school year. Classified staff recommendation of the hiring of Krista Moore, special education bus assistant, effective March the 22nd. And recommendation ECA staff Bracy Phillips, assistant girls track coach at the Tipton Middle School. And the donation was an anonymous donation of a Polaris Ranger crew to the Tipton High School athletics, valued at approximately $3,000. And next on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
All right. First of all, I wanted to, I did put in the new administrative organizational chart that will begin in July of this year. And essentially what that organizational chart looks like and what the differences would be, essentially elevating Dan Benefel and Eric Johnson to kind of director levels of, and they would have more supervising of employees and also of facilities, kind of taking the place of, what when we decided to reduce the director of operations position. Again, these positions will be assuming some of those responsibilities that was part of that. And we also, talking in those terms, with transportation, we would have Shane Clark take over responsibilities with transportation. So just in general, just kind of wanted to talk a little about that organizational chart, talk about how it works. And you guys have any questions regarding that organizational chart at all?
You answered my question in an email.
Yes.
Do all of these director positions report to you?
Yes, it's, I tried to put that in a way that made more sense. So I'm glad you brought that up. So I may have to change the way that looks a little bit so it doesn't give the wrong impression. So probably move the administrators, the building level administrators over to the side, because
the elevation of Mr. Banfield and Mr. Johnson, does it also, are they absorbing new duties, or are their current duties will still continue as, I mean, that's one question.
Yeah, they will continue the same duties, but there'll also be added duties with the positions. So they're going to have more responsibility than what they've had in the past. Which I think, they do a great job, so. So I think that, and one of the things that we're going to do differently is we will have a monthly directors meeting, or not, probably every 2 weeks actually. So we already have building level administrators 1 week, so the next week will be director meetings, so that we can just always make sure we're all on the same page and doing what we need to do. So for the May meeting, we are going to ask you to approve handbooks. I'm going to try to get those to you as soon as possible, so you have an opportunity to look through them. So I'm hoping that by the 1st of May or so, you would be able to have them. And there may be some subtle changes that I would let you know if there were going to be what those changes would be. So again, we're talking about building level faculty handbooks. This is something that Mr. Imsweller began. The faculty handbooks are actually very similar intentionally, so that there's not a policy that is different in a different building, so just consistency. And so we'll be bringing those to you, as well as student handbook, student ride guide, bus driver handbook, and athletic handbook. And we will denote any changes in there. We'll probably do some strikeouts and denote changes in a different color font. So just to kind of let you know how that will work. Book fees will also be coming in May. We've been working to trim down book fees. I'll be really honest, they're not where I want them to be yet. I feel like our book fees are high. I think that that's something that we are going to continue to work on. It's one of those goals I had in my head, I just didn't get it all done. I'm just purely honest. So hopefully in another year we'll be able to look at some of those. One of the things that's nice about this federal money that we're getting, some of the software that parents have had to pay for through book fees, we'll be able to pay for through the ESSA money. So that'll alleviate some of those expenses. And so hopefully you're going to see some reduction in book fees in general. High school is always the different one, because it just depends on what class you take. Primarily what you will be getting is just like a pre-K to 12, pre-K to 8 book fees on that. Spring sports are up and ready to go. We are not live streaming the spring sports. We've actually checked with all of the schools in our conference. No one is. It's almost impossible to live stream. We just don't have the equipment to be able to do it. We would just basically have one camera. That would be a little hard to see what exactly is going on. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that was known. We had a couple of patrons ask some questions about why we weren't doing that. Again, it's just logistics. It's not as challenging inside, so to make that happen, it's just more of a challenge in the outside. Transfer students, we are aggressively getting some information out there to attract some transfer students. I have shared kind of an infographic that I created for those transfer students. We also are going to begin a social media blitz on those transfers. As you saw in your packet, we are adding 2 additional advisory committees. And since essentially we're adding branding, public relations, and then student achievement. So I just kind of, we have some of you that are already on two, and now everybody's on two. If we, and I did want to offer up that with the student achievement, if somebody wants to be on the third one, you're more than welcome to be on that one, because I just have two of you on that one right now. The student achievement will actually be kind of a hybrid, because that will also be with some school, with the building level administrators. So that will be a little bit different than a couple of the others. And again, just trying to make sure that we're really putting student achievement in the forefront and as part of our strategic plan, and making sure that we are moving things forward. On student achievement note, our preliminary iRead scores results, we had 91% of our kids pass the first time, which is really great. We had 17 students with a perfect score, so which is terrific. And for those students that did not pass this first time, they will have a summer school for a couple of weeks and then retake the test. And hopefully more of those students, I think there were 10, if I'm not mistaken, is that right, Mrs. Rail?
10.
10 that did not pass. So hopefully we can get the majority of those to pass on the second time. And that's all I have for supervision.
We talked a little bit about this today, but is the 91% and the 17 students high, average, or low for this year?
I think it's about normal. Is that about right? Yeah, it's about normal. And I think when push comes to shove, we're usually about, what, 94 to 95%. So hopefully we will be right there, which actually I was happy to see. Some of our data, it's really interesting. ELA, we appear to be doing okay, which is really interesting, but math has really suffered. So it will be a little interesting to see if that's a trend everywhere. So.
Will you have the criteria for who will attend summer school fairly soon?
Yes, and we are working on that with administrators, and we will begin our full court press on that very quickly, because we feel like that, it's kind of new to the community. We've not really had an intense summer school, so part of it is just educating people what it is, and then I think at the high school level with the idea of credit recovery, that's a really different feel too. So we just have to do a good job of communicating what summer school is, and then really try and get out and grab those kids. And again, our whole idea is there has definitely been some learning loss due to this pandemic. There would have to be, and anything we can do to try and get back on track is just a wise investment.
Will that communication come from this office or from the administrators for each building?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, both. We'll send out, and through Thrill Share, some just kind of overall from the district level, and then more specific at the building level.
Okay, very good.
Dr. Glaze, I would just like to celebrate that. Congratulations to Mrs. Rail and the third grade team and all for achieving that. That is very impressive. So I would just like to really celebrate that, because that's, I happen to have a third grade child, and that's a lot of work. And so very, very impressive. That's awesome.
I was gonna say exactly that, but I was gonna include K1 and 2 as well, because that's where that foundation, the third grade teachers can build on.
Absolutely.
Doing an amazing job.
I agree. It's all good. Very well done.
On the iRead that did not pass Mrs. Rail to 10, is that up from normal years?
No.
Okay.
No, it's about where we have been in the past, maybe a few more students, but there are circumstances with most of the students, which is what we have found in previous years when students are not successful on that.
Okay. Do we have a spotlight on schools?
We don't. I usually take that off. I did not do that this time, sorry about that.
The next item on the agenda is department reports, facilities and transportation, student services, and technology. And you've all had an opportunity to read those. Any questions?
We are missing one report, which I'm sure that was.
I did have one question, on Mr. Gingrich's report. He notes that the website content migration was completed, and I'm not sure what this term means, but user SSO integration scheduled for Monday, May 12th. I guess I'm curious when the new website and the new app will be launching, because we had talked about March, and so.
Yeah, it's been very delayed. Actually, we ended up getting a new person in charge of our website because I got a little frustrated.
You're saying a new vendor, a new outside?
Just a new rep, same vendor, a new rep.
Okay.
So she's really on it and getting things moving pretty quickly. So yes, we are delayed, but I think we will be live on that May 12th.
On May 12th, so,
Yes, yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And so essentially what is, what's going on with that is kind of the trying to make sure that everything is ready to go when it goes live. So everything will be migrated over. And we also will have some updating that we will need to do once we get our hands on it. Because some of the information that they migrated over will not be posted current.
I see, yes.
Yeah, so.
Who internally will be managing that website content? Is that still being ironed out?
That would be our friend Bianca.
All right. Okay.
She's dancing.
Awesome. Okay.
Does that mean you're excited about it?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
She's excited about everything.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Right one for it.
Completely
Okay.
awesome. So.
Does that mean
Right, next on the agenda is the financial report. The ladies had several items for us to look at this month.
So essentially, revenue actually exceeded expenditures, which is always a good thing in the education fund, by about $34,000. Total cash balance in the education fund was around $56,000. Cash balance in the operation fund is $963,442. Rainy day fund is $3.2 million, and then debt service is $1.1 million. So we're coming up to the point with the operation fund where we're getting ready to get our draw, and so it was kind of always a little unpleasant until we get our draw, and so that will be coming along here in June. So that's always a good thing. So.
All right, next on the agenda is our facilities study. Bob Weedy and his crew is here for performance services.
Hey, Roy.
Thank you, appreciate the time. Chris Garrity, our architect's gonna take you through, you've seen some of this before, just a little more in depth if you can. Did you break it again?
It works opposite of what you think it should.
I don't know, what do you do when it beeps at you? Click on that. Yeah, just click it.
There we go. There.
Okay.
You're welcome. No problem.
Which one are you, what's that, what's that?
It should be all the way.
Yeah, she's the last one open.
Like that.
No. Let me go back to the finder and open it again.
Sorry about that, Gary.
Probably had it open.
Should have taken those off.
Good still.
Sorry, there's a lot of pictures, so.
They just,
Dramatic entry.
you just love our Apple products.
I'm just gonna do it 30 seconds. Just, we've had the pleasure of presenting to you a couple times. Just a reminder, we've been working with the schools since, what was our first project, North
2012?
12, yes, so, and I've had a chance to do several projects at the school. Most of it was infrastructure, So we've been able to take care of a lot of the HVAC, the lighting, some of the plumbing, the restrooms, and so our focus on this is really more learning environment and upgrading the solid bones that you have to really a current building for educating kids too. So that's really what Chris is gonna be focused on, so. I'll let
Thank
go.
you. I'm going to go to our next slide. So we did have a team of architects and engineers tour your building, working very closely with, obviously, our knowledge we already have, working with your district for so long, as well as working with your staff and administrators, which has been a great experience. Really learning a lot from them, and hopefully that really shows in some of the design solutions that are coming up. So we did have a full-service team that reviewed the building, or buildings. When we looked at this, we looked at all three buildings separately, and you'll start to see somehow those pan out. But we looked at two things. So one is the facility assessment, which is really your bones of your building. So conditions of how well your floors, walls, HVAC systems, electrical, how all of that pans out. We also then looked at it on an educational programming side. So that's a little harder to quantify. So what we did is we do have some potential concepts here. These are by no means the final solutions, but we wanted to start identifying, okay, here's some educational program needs. Here's a potential of what that can start to look like. So when you start to see some things, some graphics, some floor plans, know that that's a starting point. Through the whole process, the final solution may not look like that, but that's at least the starting point of here's how we can begin this conversation, and then working through your administration, your staff, your teachers, really start to make that yours and what that really means to you. So first we'll look at the facility overall, and then we're going to dive into each building independently, elementary school, middle school, and high school. Looking at the scores, those are your physical condition scores. Again, educationally it's kind of hard to quantify quality and not quality. 100% is really hard to achieve. 100% really is your building is brand new. So all three of your buildings score remarkably well, especially for the age. And then that goes back to what Bob was alluding to. Your building conditions and your bones are in really, really good shape. HVAC systems are in really good shape overall. There's a couple parts and pieces. Even your finishes and your conditions of your architectural pieces are, in general, very good throughout the building. Now, there are a couple key components that you'll see some pictures of that we really want to address. But in general, your buildings are scoring very, very well. So that's something to be commend to you guys as well as your staff of really keeping everything up. So starting at the elementary school, overall you score 78. Note being the newest building of the three, also not surprising, you scored the highest. Some of the educational programs that we identified are some of the key components. The media center, currently obviously undersized, you'll see some images of that. The site circulation drop off, your cafeteria side, and then just having a canopy when you walk in the building to protect from rain. So the pictures you're going to see are some of the critical issues. Please stop me as I'm going to go. I'll pause at the very end, but if there's something specific you see or you've got concerns or questions on, please let me know. Big needs on this one is your floor and your hallways. You can start to see some of those images. Again, well maintained, looks clean. It's just end of its life expectancy. The type of material there is just hard to repair. You can see some patches that were done over the years. It just doesn't look the greatest, just by age of the condition. And then the cafeteria as well, very public-facing spot. I'm sure you've used that for a lot of your activities as well as community coming in or parents coming in. It just doesn't have that welcoming, warm feel that you probably want. Coat cubbies, this was something that was a little bit, issue that came up. Right now, multiple students share a coat cubby. So you have 2 or 3 students that have their coats, their bags, and everything else in there. For the younger kids, that's usually not a problem for people accidentally taking things, but it does spread lice and disease. So the current trend, so everyone has their own coat cubby. So that was something that was identified. And you'll notice this on all 3 buildings. Doors and door hardware is an issue. So really, we'd like to see the levers that you see there, and also allow you to be locked from the inside. So none of these doors can be locked in case of an emergency without going into the hallway, keying it in, and getting back in. So for safety and security, obviously we want to be able to secure that, and then the knobs, just you can't grasp them. So that's not an ADA or accessible issue. And then in general, your kitchen, again, your staff is doing a wonderful job with what they have. It's just hitting the end of its life expectancy. You can start to see rust and some discoloration on the ceilings. The next slide, you'll see some pictures of some broken tiles. And then there's actually the floor of your cooler freezer is heaving. Water's getting underneath it. Again, nothing that's an issue with just the age of your equipment. Water's getting underneath it, freezing, pushing up on the floor, and that's why you start to see some cracks there. And then the last piece is really your media center. This one we had a little bit longer conversation on. It's undersized, and it's a very traditional media center. It's book heavy. There's not a lot of open space for your construction. It's very much, you go in there, you get a book, you do work on the book. So it doesn't have the flexibility that you see in a lot of modern media centers. Looking at the floor plan on the educational side, the two things we really want to look at is that cafeteria and how we expand that. Right now it's a little slightly undersized for what you're using it for, as well as then looking at the finishes. So you've got that as an option, and then as well as the media center. We'll show you the media center options when we get to the middle school. It's right in the middle between the two, so we put it with the middle school for now. On the cafeteria side, so this is obviously at current condition. Here's the next slide. This is what we propose to do. Again, this is the first conversation. We want to work with you guys on it. Is expanding it into some of the support spaces on there to create a larger space. Upgrading the finishes into that cafeteria, making it feel less like a gym. And then taking out the old locker rooms and creating restrooms. So right now you've got students that if they need to use the restroom during lunch period, you're sending them into a locker room, which isn't necessarily the safest way to do that. And it's probably also in condition if you're doing a science fair, you don't necessarily want to send parents into the locker room to use the restroom. So creating true restrooms since those lockers aren't used anymore. And then having some additional storage. The final layout of this, obviously something we want to work with you very closely on. But this is just kind of that first concept of what we can do to increase the size of that cafeteria and really bring it up.
And that area is not currently used at all for sort of athletics anymore?
No.
It's just the cafeteria for.
Now, some of those blocks we can shrink and use other for other programs, but in general, that zone will take it for some floor defense for cafeteria. So then moving into the middle school, scores a little lower, again, based on the age of your building. Again, all three score very well. It's just some of your equipment finishes are just getting a little older. This has the higher educational program need, since it hasn't been touched in so long. Main entrance presence, and you also see this in high school, driving by, unless you know that's the main entrance, you'll probably drive right past it. Media center, so that's tied with the elementary school. Science labs, you do have the 1970s era movable partition walls that never move. There are poor for acoustics, just doesn't function very well, so really creating true classrooms. Updating the cafeteria slightly, it's sized appropriately, but taking down some of the things that aren't used. There's some columns in there that aren't used, really opening it up a bit. And then updating the concession stand right now. I think someone just opened the door and put the table there, and we really want to make sure that that's a better situation. And then large group instruction room. So again, we're going to go through some photos. Most of this, again, is in pretty good shape. You do have some areas that just look of that vintage. Nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't have that modern 21st century learning environment. In your gym, you've got old bleachers there that have this door. It's in the middle of it, in the prime seating location. There's a random door there. You also have openings underneath it where kids can kind of go run and hide. Again, kind of a safety issue there. You've got a wonderful art project of an exit sign, and then you can see some of the old mechanical equipment. Again, most of it's in really good shape. There's just a few parts and pieces that really touch it. And then these are some of those temporary walls that never get temporary. That's probably never moved since you've installed it in the building, but looking at updating those to become a more modern, or at least more permanent solution. And then science labs, again, of that vintage, really, which is really challenging for your staff and teachers. to really provide that 21st century learning environments. And then door hardware, again, is going to be an issue you see in all three buildings. There are a lot of masonry issues on this building in particular. We did have a mason out to look at it. It's not something that the building is falling down right now, it's just general maintenance. So all those limestone on the windows there, they've got a crack in almost every one of them. We looked at it, talking to the mason, it's really, again, it's just an age thing. What we want to come back is what she actually did at the elementary school, is cut that in half. It's 7 feet of limestone that over time changes, moves, that's where you're getting the cracking. Cut it in half like you have at the elementary school, all of a sudden it has a little bit of breathing room and will be less likely to crack. We also had a structural engineer out looking at those, just again, we want to make sure that there's nothing that's falling down, and based on his observation, he's like, it's something that you just want to address, but it's not something that you need to get somebody out today to look at. Looking at the educational components, again, we have that media center renovation, and then that center floor area, that kind of salmon and red colors, that's where we convert those into true classroom walls. So normal sub walls, you can get some more aesthetics in there, sound, and then make it a little more functional, create some science labs. You see the LGI, which is a large group instruction room, so how that can really bring in the 21st century cafeteria and kitchen renovations. So this is the LGI on the left-hand side currently. Rows, very college lecture-esque, but also not very functional for your student, for your teachers if they want to create something, have very integrated programs. So what's an option is to do something which is the picture on the left, or the right, sorry, is Purdue's boiler up room. This one is a tiered approach where there's more collaborative seating. It's still in the lecture base, so a teacher can come in there, do a program, and then have your students work independently. We had conversations of this being flat into one big room, similar concepts, but without the tiers. So there's a lot still that we have to work through, but really trying to create that into a large group learning environment that's very collaborative instead of the traditional person sitting in front of the room talking to everybody. Science labs, again, is a major issue, really just modernizing those to give 21st century learning environments. And then the big piece in this one is the media center. So having the two next to each other, there's a lot of opportunities for some of your fifth graders to come up to work with some of your material, the middle school. A lot more collaborative environments. Right now it is, again, very stuck in that 1970s era. So what we're looking at is modernizing it, enlarging the elementary school. Right now the elementary school is very small as far as how it functions. Some small group meeting rooms, so if you do have a project and someone needs to be a little louder working together, you can send them somewhere so they're not disruptive. And then access to those project rooms. That's a great asset that you guys have next to the elementary school. How do we bring that into the media center, really creating a complete environment? So this is what you currently have, the middle school and elementary school. This is some of the concepts of what it can become. Garage doors to give you a little bit more openness to connect to some of those project rooms, and then a lot more just flexible learning environments. So this is what it could become. Really clearing out on that first floor some of the support spaces between the elementary and middle school to really create that connection. Also gives your staff a lot better observation. So the office is moving to where that purple is in the lower section there. You can stand in the middle, look both to the middle school and to the elementary school. So it really improves the sight lines there, creating some small group instruction rooms between the two. While the elementary schools probably won't use it very often, at least having it there so everyone has equal access to it, then connection to those project groups. So this is what it currently looks like. We do have a rendering of what it could look like. Again, this is something that we'd want to work with you guys, making sure we have the right parts and pieces, but at least give you an idea of what that vision could become. So this is a rendering of a before, and if you want to go to the after. Again, bringing some colors, bringing in some more flexible learning environments. As you can kind of tell, we want to make sure that we're spending your dollars wisely. We're not changing major walls or anything besides some of those collaborative learning environments, but a little can help a lot.
Where's all that natural light coming
So I think we just improved the light fixtures in there.
Okay.
There is plenty of light still behind. Those tall windows are pretty good shape. But just getting rid of some of that beige and browns will really make it a brighter environment. Moving on to the high school. This is the lowest score of the three. Again, slightly, again, oldest part of the building or some of the older parts of the building. So it's to be expected. Educational program needs, really is that main entrance presence again. While this one's a little better than the middle school, still driving by is something very easy to miss. Science labs, media center, commons and public space, and then your just kitchen updates. So we do have some carpet in the pool and the seating areas that is usually not good, so we want to get that out. Doors, again, is going to be an issue, as we talked about in all three buildings. In general, just some of the finishes are a little older, again, dated, and just haven't been updated. The biggest concern, obviously, is the science labs. Those are, again, probably original to the building, so how do we upgrade that to allow some of the more 21st century learning and some of the opportunities there. So, again, your staff and teachers are doing a great job with what they have. It's just some of it is dated and really needs to get updated and pulled up to current standards. And then we do have a huge amount of electrical equipment that is sitting right in the serving line for your kitchen. So we want to make sure that that's for safety and aesthetics, that gets addressed. So you see those panels, and I'm standing there as you're checking out at point of sale. So we want to get that fixed. And in general, the kitchen just needs to get addressed as far as bringing it up to kind of current standards. So that is, the last time you've seen one of those panels, yeah.
That's my grandparents' house.
Use box, yeah.
Throw a penny in and when they
There you
have
go.
one, yeah.
So most of your systems, obviously, we've been able to upgrade over the years. There just remains to be a few pieces there. Some of the restrooms are not ADA accessible or handicap accessible, so actually this is in the clinic, one of the areas that really should be updated, so you can have someone in a wheelchair that can go in and use the restroom. They would get that updated in the middle school. The high school just hasn't gotten that upgrade yet. So looking at that in floor plan, to the left is north, so your drive is to the plan south, I guess. Your commons, starting towards the middle school to the right. Your commons upgrades is really some finishes and some lighting in there. It's a really nice space. It's just very dark. There's a couple can lights that you probably have in your basement. Really upgrading that, as well as that wall that you're going to see on the second floor. Taking that down and creating glass, or glass or some sort of transparent material. Students can get up there and hide, and kind of if you go below that wall there, you really can't be seen. So that is a safety issue. We want to make sure that we get that addressed. Door H, use that for PE a lot, so making that not only handicap accessible, but getting some protection and some aesthetic piece on the exterior. Clinic and ADA admin restrooms we just talked about, and then really changing some of the program on that main level. So besides your media center, or besides your theater commons area, there's not a good commons breakout space in your current high school. And you have a lot of great awards, memorabilia down the hallway, but it's just kind of haphazardly been done. So if we can take some of those storage spaces that's currently underneath your bleachers, clear some of that out, and kind of create some sort of breathing commons area by the administration. That's also an opportunity to start bringing those in collection together. Looking at technology, how do we create that as a welcoming environment, but as a welcoming for your visitors and community, as well as just something to kind of bring that collection together. The big change you're going to see here is that media center. So right now your media center is up on the second floor. It also is very traditional, so when we upgrade that, and we started talking about with your administration, is that really the right spot for it? It's not centrally located, it's kind of up and tucked away. Well, what if that came downstairs to really be more public facing and front facing? So taking some of those old science rooms and getting rid of those, cleaning that up, and maybe that front area becomes that media center. When we do that, we have to look at science. Again, science in this one is very old, or more than 1970s era equipment. So what we talked about in this one is creating general science labs flanked by two classrooms. So you're much more efficient with that because your science lab, which is your most expensive, is not in each classroom. It's shared between 2 classrooms. So when biology's in there one day or one period, astronomy is in their classroom, and they can start to flip flop. So we can really update 2 labs supported by 2 classrooms. And then we also have just general condition or kitchen renovations. Going upstairs, some of the things that we move out of the first floor, so to make room for the science, really moves up to that second floor where the old media center is. We're calling that the Innovation Center, for lack of a better term. Robotics, broadcast studio, esports, other programs that as we work together, they can start to live in that zone. So it's a little bit more protected, but it's still front-facing for your students and really creates this really hub of information and innovation. We do want to make sure FACS is located in there as well, because that's being relocated. This is that area we're talking about with the school commons, so taking out some of that storage, and on the lower left is that location, knocking some of those walls down, opening that up, so there's a concept image on the right where we have actually done this off of some athletic space. Again, cleans it up, creates some breathing room if you're waiting for your ride when you're inside the building, gives you a place to go that's not standing in the hallway. Opportunities for also education, so if you need some space outside the room, you're doing a big project, this is a big open space that you can use. Science labs, again, they're very traditional. Your staff is doing a great job working with what they have. It's just time to really bring those up to current standards and current equipment. And then media center. So this is your media center upstairs. Again, very traditional, probably some of the media centers that many of us have gone through. Not a lot of large group instruction or collaborative spaces, very book focused and not really project focused. So this is a concept around rendering of what it could become. Again, this is something we'd want to work very closely with your staff, teachers, and media specialists on what this could become, but much more inviting. You can start to see some small group instruction spaces or collaboration spaces. So when you're working on a project, someone can be researching something in a book while another team is putting together a PowerPoint presentation in a room. So they can be a little louder, they can shut the door. There's still glass there, so one media specialist or teacher can really see what's going on and observe everybody. And then site. So site circulation is an issue on campus. It's been tried to address multiple times, but essentially the big pieces are the elementary school drop-off. The car drop-off loop is pretty long. The elementary school playground renovations, really it's the surfacing of it. Some of it, there's a lot of trip hazards. It's just hit at the end of its life expectancy. General signage to the campus, just making sure it's a little bit more easy to find your way around. High school exterior cafeteria, just had some minor repairs, and then exterior gates, closing off some of that area in the back of your building where your buses are, just so, especially on weekends, people aren't coming back there. There's no reason for them to be back there. So this is a very initial concept of what this could become. Again, this is something we want to work really closely with your staff on, and really it's going to start to evolve. So I'll start on the elementary school side, potentially taking part of that soccer field, not all of it, but it's some part of it to create an additional space for the elementary school drop-off loop. Looking at the canopy there, the new entrance, and then one of the big changes is potentially closing off that drive between your elementary school and middle school. Now I know it's going to be a change for a lot of parents that drop off their elementary or pick up at their elementary and their middle school, but there's a lot of benefits to that. We've made a couple tweaks too to try to make that a little easier. But that alleviates a lot of the stress on year 2, and as well as it kind of creates a safer environment so people aren't trying to drive between buildings and really kind of mess up that. Moving north, we create a new exit point where it's out here with the administration, but using that main entrance, I think it's entrance 3 by the theater, that is your new entrance to your campus. So if you're doing high school drop-off or middle school drop-off, you go into that. Turn right to go to your middle school, turn left to go to your high school. So you'd be able to drop off on the middle school side where majority of the people are elementary and middle school drop-off. you can drop off there, exit, and go right into the next entrance to the south to get to elementary school, or vice versa. Going north, then we would be able to drop off at the high school entrance. Looking straight forward, we do have the tennis courts, but there's an opportunity then to turn right, close that drive, because right now it's too close to the intersection to turn left. Where the old tennis courts are, come through there, create another exit at that locations where they can turn right and left. This frees up the drive by the athletic fields for your buses. So you have separate car drop-off and exit point, keeping everybody out of that bus drive. And then looking at athletic fields and then converting that to turf.
Couple gates.
And then a couple gates for weekends when there's not an athletic event, securing that so people don't go back there and do things that they shouldn't do. Now obviously that's a big change to how your campus functions. This is probably not the right answer or the final answer, but at least starting to have some of those conversations on how can we start doing some of these things and making it a little bit more easier for visitors, easier for staff, and also safe for work environment. We talked a couple times about that entrances. This is just an example of how we can accomplish it for a low cost. You can see on the left is a concept or an image of a school entrance, and then to the right is a concept image of what it could become. Again, small canopy and a small amount of work can go a long way, and really defining that as an entrance. And then finishing up is kind of the implementation. So we've got a lot of information for you guys. You've got a lot more in your packet, but this is one solution to get there. And I think we've talked a couple times about doing a series of $5 million projects. So fortunately, we can condense most of these into small $5 million projects. So potentially for 2022 for construction, we can do work at the elementary school, the high school phase 1, and then the campus and site. So whatever that final campus design could be, start next summer. We want to work obviously very closely with you on where we can move people around. As we do schools, I guess 90% of the time, we're very used to making sure that this is a school first, construction site second. But we want to be able to work on how we can get all those implemented in 2022. And then moving into 2023 is when we tackle the middle school. And then high school phase 2, just because there's a lot of work there, it looks like it's probably going to span 2 years. Now, this is subject, we want to work with you guys on exactly what those are, what component parts and pieces come in each, but this is at least that first concept of how we can get that implemented.
Just to finalize on a little bit on the schedule, this can still be done working on a summer 2022 work, get those first 3 projects done. This is a perfect design build type of project because it's not very clean. It's going to have a really collaborative team environment in order to move through that in a quick pace, yet handle all, you're a school first and still work through some of those. Because parts of those areas will need to either work before school's out or after it's started in order to make that function. And so really when you're doing renovation in an existing building, that's where that collaboration piece is so critical. We've been fortunate to work with you on a few of those on infrastructure. This will even be more invasive because we're going to get into classrooms and have to move some people around a little bit. So, but we've done these type of projects before, and doing them in the timeline that we have, we could see those completing by the summer part of it in the early fall of 2022, and then coming around for those second phases in 2023, and meeting those financial components of the $5 million type rate. So I didn't have a slide for schedule, but that's something that we worked on. So are there any questions that we just have asked you to drink out of a fire hose here? So it's been several months worth of information, trying to condense it down to it. But are there any questions for the team?
I may have missed it, but I didn't see a gate at the elementary school.
So that's definitely something we can look at, especially when you start looking at that playground side. When we do that drive, we probably do something to close that off.
Currently, there is a gate, but how we re-envision that with a future plan for how that traffic flow is.
Anything
I think the renderings look really great. I'm thrilled with the renderings. They were just very nice. Very nice to them. I mean, we presented this to our team back at the office, and they all said, this is a really good building. It really is. It needs a little freshening up a little bit here and there to really, and just needs a little more space for collaboration and the current program methods that people want to teach. But really solid and a lot to work with. So, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we don't have any old business. New business, we skipped over 6.1, which is to approve textbooks for social studies for next school year. We'll address that coming meeting. 6.2 is consideration to approve requests for qualifications for architectural firms for upcoming Tiffin Community School Corporation building projects. Tiffin Community School is soliciting a request for qualification, which is sometimes referred to as RFQ, for the upcoming building projects that will impact all of our buildings beginning in the summer of 2022. The RFQ will be advertised in local media outlets and will be due April 30th, 2021. The committee will review and make a recommendation to Tiffin Community Board of Trustees in the May meeting. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution as written. We've all had a chance to look that over. Need a motion and a second.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve Dr. Glaze doing the request for qualifications. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next is consideration to approve Tiffin Community School Corporation's vision statement. Mrs. Roderball has the latest revision, so I will let her read that.
Okay. Our current working version is growing empowered, future-ready students who are prepared for a lifetime of opportunity and success. So as we all know, we worked on this starting in our all-day Saturday session, and we've massaged it and massaged it. So knowing that it's been sitting here for a while, I make a motion to approve the vision statement of growing empowered, future-ready students who are prepared for a lifetime of opportunity and success, to be adopted as the new TCSC vision statement.
Absolutely love it, I second it.
Motion and a second to approve the vision statement as read. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Other matters coming before the board. Anybody have anything? Advisory committee is coming up April the 19th. As Business Affairs will be meeting. May the 7th, Branding and Public Relations will be holding their first committee meeting. Facilities and Technology will be June the 21st. July 19th will be Personnel, and August the 16th will be Student Achievement Committee having their first meeting. It's coming.
Sorry, do we have those meetings in here now?
Yes.
Okay, yes, yes.
Next up is schedule of events. We have our e-learning day coming up this week, professional development with that. The prom is this Friday. As I said, the business affairs is next week. The employee appreciation banquet is May the 3rd. To go along with that, which is Teacher Appreciation Week, May 3rd through the 7th. And the next board meeting will be May the 11th. Next is comments from the community, and Ms. Rodebaugh has that list. So.
Okay. I have the list, and I also have my 3-minute timer ready. All right, first signed up is Mrs. Kim Warner.
Hi. I wanted to just thank the board for helping out with appearances. I know in August of 2019, the state reduced the amount of money that you could transfer from the education fund to operations. And now it's 14%. And we continue to do that 14%. And then it went to the operations fund, and then we transferred some money to the rainy day fund. And then we're like, oh, teacher salaries are really expensive. So let's take money from the rainy day fund. And so for a community to say, wow, they're taking money from a rainy day fund to pay teachers, when originally that money was there, I thought created a bad view of teachers. And so I appreciate the fact that we're like toning down how much we're transferring because the transportation fund or the operations fund is in good shape. I think it helps when we talk about teacher salaries. And we're struggling citywide or countywide because our fire department is trying to get better salaries and our police department is trying to get better salaries, and we want people to stay. And so I think our school corporation has done a good job of helping raise the scale so we can get young teachers and get them to stay. And I hope that the fire department and police departments are able to as well, but not to have this big cloud of, oh, they just want more money or those salaries, but I think not transferring that money helps the appearance, and I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. Next up is Mrs. Denise Keough.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Mr. Matt Higginbotham.
I didn't really have anything to say, but I did have one question on the plans, on the expansion in the elementary of the cafeteria. It looks like you're doing away with the teacher's lounge, and I didn't know if you were gonna, I just was curious as to if there was any plans for that, or if they were all gonna be forced to use the one up by the office.
Well, I mean, there will be another space that we will, I mean, we've got a lot of space in the elementary that could be used. It just made more sense to, when we're trying to expand the cafeteria, to go that direction, because there's all kinds of mechanical.
Oh, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
disagree with that. I just
Yeah.
wanted to say it wasn't referenced. It was in the presentation, act like it was a vacant space
Yeah.
at the moment, and it's
Yeah.
not.
So likely, there would be another location for that.
I didn't see a space for the computer labs, but I just assumed there would be a spot.
Yes, and that's where those project rooms are going to be off of the media center, so.
Can I have one more thing? So, on the presentation, I completely agree with the presence and knowing the buildings, because middle school's terrible, the frontage on the high school's terrible. But I don't want to forget, if you're going to do all this work, that the majority of people that come into our buildings come in through the back entrances to the gym and. So that's where the parking. Well, I mean, just that whole center section, that's the only place where we have to park.
Yeah,
So-
your athletic entrances, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Higginbotham. Next, we have Mrs. Kelly Lightfoot. Thanks, Kelly. Next, we have Ms. Lee Smith.
I would like to present an opportunity in the form of an idea and hope someone can help me make this a reality, not just for me and my child, but continue pushing our community as a whole in the right direction. I am asking the school to consider the opportunities a before and after school care program and or summer care program could open for the district and the community. I believe I believe our community is in a unique position to take hold of this opportunity and run with it. These programs can be utilized to help school-aged children push our district from ordinary and acceptable to extraordinary and exceptional. A safe, trusted, and reliable place for our children to learn and grow outside of school hours. I implore the district to recognize the serious lack of these programs in this community. And this could be an opportunity for this district to have a positive influence and sway, ensuring program effectiveness. It would be blending academic learning and hands-on activities, the possibility of recreational, educational, and on-task-based programs, the ability to grow the forming partnerships with community organizations and businesses to leverage resources and professionalize the summer school staff. I believe this is an untapped avenue to raise possible revenue, test scores, and to combat the summer slide. In 2019, among married couples with families, 64.2% had both parents employed. Sorry, I lost my place. Consider working parents of school-aged children employed even within this building. When is their start time? What about before school meetings? I believe that some people are being asked to have their kids wait outside, or if they do bring them in, to like clean the classroom before the actual students come in. That was what somebody had explained to me. It is the opportunity to say you do before or after school care. You are then having the parents pay for a service of bringing and picking up their children. I know that at the last meeting, you voted to extend the bus contract. This is an opportunity to have this evaluated within that. It would cut on transportation costs. It would cut on the very long drop-off line for the elementary in the mornings. I am not asking for a free public or district-provided program. I'm asking for the opportunity as a parent to pay a fee for a safe and reliable before and after care program in this community. If you build it, they will come. If you don't provide it, they will choose a community and district that does. Consider it not a lack of interest, it is a lack of availability. As it stands now, my son can no longer attend Tipton unless something's done. So, thank you.
Thank you. I do, thank you, sorry I lost. Mrs. Laura Saton.
Welcome, ladies. Since I was last here. Real quick, about student achievement and, you know, the remediation / summer school project. I know you alluded to the backslide and just in general with the pandemic, the hybrid, the way we've done school, out of necessity. Now, I mean, we get it. You know, you've got 85% of first-time Fs. You've got estimates, maybe 1 to 3 years, depending on where our school system is as far as remediation and getting these kids kind of caught up to where they should be. So I just have a real quick few questions about that. After the remediation summer school piece, is there a plan to continue remediation since it will in inevitability kind of be a longer term goal? Will there be a process throughout it other than just stopping after summer school? Like, I know we're not happy about the iLearning, but at the very least it's a chance to get a baseline of where they're at. So I mean, that's at least a silver lining in that. And is the remediation in the summer school just focused, I mean, the two big areas are math and English. Is that where the focus, yeah, I figured as much. Okay. And it's really an opportunity not just for kids who have Fs, but as a parent in talking to many parents and to have to be a teacher on the virtual days, and in working with a partnership, I couldn't have done it without the teachers and without the principal. God knows I emailed enough, but it's also a chance to focus on those students, like my child who's one, that you know the capability, you know where they can go. You've seen where they can go, but yet you've seen the backslide as far as it's not just Fs, it's falling from maybe a B to a C- 1 week, to a D+ the next. You know, it's that opportunity to catch up. You know, a lot of parents like myself have gotten tutors to kind of help fill in that gap between now and then. And I just think maybe if it's presented that way, you know, summer school has such a, it gives me a nervous tick when I think about it. But maybe if you just kind of promote it in that sense, that it's not really a summer school, it's a, you know, an opportunity to really get a jump start on it, might be a better way to go. And real quick on the virtual learning, because I think as a society, the door has been opened and there's gonna be no closing it. You can foresee the opportunity for it to be used in many different ways. You know, you got a bad flu season, you might close it down for 2 weeks. And I just would float the idea that perhaps we start looking at how it currently is and the chance to maybe, how should I say this? Kind of assess it, maybe get input as to what parts work, what doesn't. I think consistency is a big feature that lacks. You know, just 10 seconds, really? Okay. But I think we need to reevaluate it now. And I think we have to have some consistency. You know, elementary does it one way, middle school does it, high school doesn't, and you know, we're on a continuum, and just to kind of help that curriculum flow, so to speak. So I think maybe that's a really good place we kind of need to start at, because, yeah, thanks.
And our final comment from the community is Mrs. Millett.
Pardon my ignorance, but I do not know what a Polaris Ranger crew is.
Well, that's a good question, because I don't know either.
It's a UTV.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
ATV.
There was a picture on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I don't know how to.
It's
yeah,
a very
it's-
powerful golf cart with some bigger tires,
Exactly.
yeah.
For the adults to use.
Yeah, it's like a
Yes.
gator, only it's a different brand. It's Polaris brand.
And it's been painted, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna pick up sticks over.
We go, Luann.
Do you have any other
Yeah.
questions?
Thank you.
Luann?
No, that's fine.